It's Leo. Great to see you just in time for your Leo March 2020 reading. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James, for those of you who have just stopped by for the first time. And for those of you who are my subscribers, I appreciate your loyalty. Thank you. It's great to see you again. Thank you also for those of you who have had and booked one-on-one, face-to-face psychic readings with me. It's been great to get to know you personally, and thank you very much for I know that some of you recommended me to your friends because they've told me when they've contacted me, so I do appreciate that. If you'd like to have a psychic reading, just check out the description box below and we can go from there. Now, today I am going to provide for you the tarot reading. And I'm going to use, at the end of it, 3 playing cards. Now, you might tell me in the comments section as to whether you get anything from the playing cards or you like the playing cards at the end of the tarot section. I'll just use 3. When I do my one-on-one readings with people, the playing cards are like a laser-sharp surgeon's knife. They cut straight to the chase and they tell you what is going to happen in your future. The tarot section, of course, then supplements it. This time, though, we're going tarot first, which will then be finished off with the playing cards. And the playing cards here, of course, are for a general reading, but they will have something that's interesting to say. You will get from it because they never fail. They never fail. So, let's start. What do we have? We have the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups, we have the Wheel of Fortune. What a very, very interesting picture that is. I, of course, will have you come around and sit down next to me so you can have a good close look at the imagery and the detail on these cards when we do the reading together. So that you really get to enjoy the artwork. And of course, for me, the detail of the card, there's the 4 of Wands. The detail of the card, of course, helps me to evoke the messages from the other realm and receive the energy which is pertinent to you for this month. So, we'll get that together. There's the Page of Wands. Hello, Page of Wands. Now that is drawn as a man of colour. Very often I see the Page of, well, it depends. Different decks have it different ways. I very often see it as being a female type of energy, but it depends where it spreads. It's sitting underneath the Knight, so it could be, but depends what I'm told, of course. Depends what I'm told. There is the Page of Swords. Now, I told you I was going to get 3 playing cards, didn't I? Well, I am a man of my word, so here they are. And let's see what they have to say for you. In just a moment, after we have drawn them, you're sticking out, whatever you happen to be, the Jack of Hearts. Hello, Jack of Hearts. Do you have something to say? Jack of Hearts, do you have something to say? There's the Ace of Spades. What does this Jack have to say? The Ace of Spades. And here's the 2 of Hearts. Okay, as I said, why don't you, I'll get these sorted out. Come around, sit down next to me, and we'll have a good look at these together while I do your reading for you. We have the highly talented and attractive Leo. Let's have a look at this first card, which is the Knight of Cups. Now, this is an interesting picture, isn't it? Here we have a sneering donkey walking over a stony ground. On top of it is a figure wearing the attire of the monks of Mount Athos. Mount Athos is in Greece, and there are about 20 monasteries up there. But the heavy boots and the clasps on the jacket actually show wealth and determination, ambition, I think. This figure, well, before I get to the figure itself, in here is he's holding a cup in this hand, which is
Cupid with his bow drawn. In this hand he's holding the reins of the donkey, and his finger is pointed towards you. Now, looking at his face here, he actually reminds me of the character of Rasputin. Rasputin was that much hated priest that was not the consort, the advisor, and I use that term in the broadest sense possible, to the wife of the Tsar, the Romanov, Nicholas Romanov. Rasputin was hated because it was thought that he had a hand in the destruction of the royal family. That family, of course, was then murdered when the Bolshevik Revolution took place. What can we say about this prince, this Knight of Cups? The first thing is that I'm getting a lot of Scorpio here, a lot of Scorpio and a lot of Libra. Why is that? Why is that? He is, as a person depicted here, air, and he's in the suit of water, the airy part of water. Well, water and air strengthen each other and are neutral. So in elemental dignity rules, there are no elemental contradictions in his makeup, but within him, the elements combine with Scorpio to make him, I think, something of a rather intense character. As a fast river flows, so does he, trying to get the most out of life as is possible. This is a person, now it's somebody I think who you may have in your life. This is a person I think who is, well, he's the prince of the chariot of waters, but he is completely without conscience in the ordinary sense of the word. He is perfectly ruthless, just as Rasputin was perfectly ruthless. He cares intensely for power, just as he did, and information, and he cares for looking after his own ambitions and aims. He feels no responsibility for others, and he can't be relied upon. As I say, he cares intensely for power, information, and his own aims. And if ever you're in any doubt as to where you stand in relation to him, I can remove that doubt. You stand behind him. You're not somebody to be looked after if you stand in the way. But this is a person who may appear calm, but it masks a passion and an intensity which can make him volatile. Interestingly, he has much to offer, an immense ability, but he can't be relied upon. His main responsibility, as I say, is to himself. He can be secretive, hiding his deepest desires. Maybe this is someone who's in the arts and music. And as these court cards can be both male and female, I see the arts in quite a broad sense as including things like fashion, makeup, hair, beauty, as well as computer design, graphic arts, and what have you. Interestingly, I think he can shed a lot into other people's lives because he's usually been there and done things himself. He is, at worst, cruel, selfish, and reckless. Nevertheless, I think that this does for you represent something of a period of rest and healing that is necessary after what has been something of a hectic period and before you get into a more productive phase. Now, of course, if you don't use that time wisely, you'll have a repeat cycle. So this prince, of course, exhausts himself usually in periods of sexual activity. Sometimes I think it's also important when this card turns up that you have the correct expectations of what you are to obtain from somebody else or from something else so that you don't become disappointed. It's necessary, I think, for you to set realistic goals. But of course, it's also important not to shut yourself away and stop trying to move your life forward if you have been disappointed. And for this guy, when you live life on the edge, you can experience loss, which is inevitable when you come here. However, there is, I think, also with this energy, the potential for real balance and harmony. There is an intensity to this card which resonates with Scorpio that rules it. And it can add an emotional depth to a sexual relationship, giving it intensity. It doesn't just mean sexual fulfillment, but getting the most out of life by living life to the full, using the energy of the sun in the intense sign of Scorpio. I'd have this thought in mind. I now live out my sexual desires. This makes me more vital and fulfilled. Now, there's another court card which is underneath him. This time it's the Page of Wands. Now, usually, well, I must say I'm getting something of a feminine energy here. This is a person who, if we look at the character himself, if one is to look at the right leg down here, there is a green shackle that's there, no chain attached to it, a man of colour who I would say has recently been freed, probably as a slave. He has a wand which he pushes into the ashes. There is an orchid growing from the wand, a flower from his head. There is the lush jungle threatened by fire there. And look at this lion. Here's his eye, here's his nose. He's wearing a lion's skin, which trails down, and, well, you're Leo the lion. It's very apt for you. This lion's skin, which trails down into the ground. Now, it's an interesting thing here because I'm reminded of the Greek myth of Heracles, who we came to know as Hercules. Hercules, as you may recall, was assigned 12 labors. You've heard of the 12 labors of Hercules? Well, one of those labors the first one, in fact, was to defeat the Nemean lion. Now, the Nemean lion was a beast that had a skin that was impervious to arrows, to spears, and to knives. Hercules ended up defeating it by strangling it and then wore the skin of the lion as a form of divine protection. And I think that during this period here for you, I really do get the sense of the spirit of the divine wrapping around you and acting as a spiritual protection for you. Now, there's a lot of you in this card, I think, during this month, and it's possible that you'll also have things to do with Virgo or Cancer. This represents a person who is really omnivorous in passion of whatever kind, and sometimes entirely reckless in obtaining gratification, and somebody who can be quite insatiable. Is that you? Are you insatiable? What does it also say? I think, this is the rose of the palace of fire. The character of this person is extremely individual. The person creates, and I'll refer to it as a she because I'm getting a lot of female energy around here. I say she creates her own beauty by her essential vigor and energy. She actually bedazzles. You will be bedazzling people. Now, in anger or in love, she is sudden, violent, and implacable. She is ambitious and sometimes can be irrationally enthusiastic about people or projects. And I will say this about her, that she never forgets an injury, and the only patience found in her is the patience with which she lies in ambush, ready to spring her revenge. Let's pull out so we can see her in the context of the other cards, shall we? Yes, I think that what this is saying is that you will, during this period, be really confident and daring, exciting, nonconformist, I think, really freedom-loving, but quite ambitious. People are going to love your character and energy, and you are going to be making a very powerful first impression on people. The Leo woman will be seen as being gorgeous, and the Leo man will be very charismatic during this period. Now, as I say, just be careful, because she can be vengeful, temperamental, unruly, and sometimes quite cruel. So no, I don't make any moral judgment about that. I just pointed that out as an energy which is coming up. But I'll say this, that this can also mean here, where it's placed, the conquering of old fears and patterns of thought. You've brought them to the surface and conquered them, although you've often learned lessons the hard way, haven't you? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Look, I'm going to do this other... Given that we're in the groove of talking about court cards, let's continue with this one. This is the Page of Swords. Now, the Page of Swords, what can I say about it from the point of view of the image? Well, look, really, back in medieval and Renaissance Italy, one of the great forms of entertainment was puppet shows. And there was a character in the puppet shows called Brighella. And Brighella was the villain of the piece. He was always interested in getting money and causing trouble. And he was perfect at doing that, and would always be booed and hissed by the audience member. There's a black cat there. He's holding a flower of some sort and has this great thing coming from him. All very interesting. That's who I think the actual character is that's painted there. But what does this mean? Well, I think what it means is I think that people of interest to you will be Aquarius, Pisces, and Capricorn. And again, I'm getting female energy around this, a young woman. Now, this may well be someone that you know, who is stern and revengeful, firm and aggressive, but actually very skilled in the ways of the world. The elements in here are earth and air. Now, they are enemies and they weaken each other, so conflict in her nature is to be expected. But the implication of earth in air is that she deals with situations involving the mind in a very tangible and useful way. That is, she can manifest her thoughts and make them a reality. And I think that is what you will be doing during this period. Now, if it relates to someone else, I've got the feeling that there's this sort of outer energy that's coming here, which makes it think that there's somebody that you might know. And in some respects, if it is this person, and as I say, it could be an Aquarius, a Capricorn, or a Pisces, they sort of attract troubles and can be an unhappy person when it comes to practical and material matters. It's as if all the fine qualities of air are weighed down and suffocated, and in some respects they can appear as being children of misfortune. They're also the type of person, I think, who can throw everything overboard and blow everything sky high, but ultimately it appears as if they have chosen the right thing. This is the lotus of the palace of the air, and I think that what this is saying is that you are going to be very clever in practical matters, especially where arguments are concerned. Now, I will say this. The energy coming through here is one where there is what I'd say a destructive way of analyzing things and applying them, so just be aware of that. Just be aware of that and make sure that you are constructive in the way that you're doing it. Look, again, I'm getting this very aggressive and vengeful sort of feeling to it. But there is here a very forward and outgoing attitude to your manner, I think. You will be getting ideas grounded in a tangible way. This other person that may be out there, I think, is fighting battles internally and externally. So you may be called upon to give them some help. And I think that in some respects you might be following your own bent rather than serving another person. And in due course it is going to be the case that you will get your gain, you will get your reward, and I do think that you will be very successful in settling controversies, very successful. I'd have this thought in mind, and it is, well, first of all, there's a bit of a rebellious nature to you, I think, during this period, and you should look inside to see that your rebellion is rooted in love. And I'd have this affirmation in mind: my rebellion is positive, constructive, and creative. Now, let's see what we have here. I'm going to leave this one to last because it's a beauty. And here is the Four of Wands. Now, well, this is quite straightforward from an image point of view. Here we have four men, well, really kind of dancing around together, aren't they? They're enjoying each other's company and pushing forward. Now, if we were to look at the images themselves, I'd say that the guy, and bearing in mind this is like a medieval or Renaissance deck, this person here probably represents the people of the coastal areas. This person here with the hat and the freckles represents the very fair-skinned people from the more northern climates. This gypsy-like figure represents people, I think, from the interior part of Europe. And this person in white is a combination of all of those. You know how sunlight is white, whereas when you put it through a prism it splits into the different colours? Well, this is the reverse effect. And here is a garland, which is the fruit of the produce of the area, hung up in the air, quite interestingly. Now, why am I getting air there? Well, first of all, the astrology is the Venus ruling of the third decan of Aries. Venus. Well, Venus rules two signs, doesn't it? It rules Taurus and it rules Libra. But because I've got this real feeling of air there, I'm going to assign for the moment Venus to Libra, which is an air sign. And I'm saying that Venus is in Aries. So Venus is going to have to move from that air sign of Libra to the diametrically opposed side of the zodiac wheel to get into Aries, where Venus is going to be in detriment. The other thing is that the ruler of Aries is Mars, and so you have Venus coming over to sit down next to Mars. And if you put Mars and Venus together, what do you get? Normally you get trouble. But in this case, I don't think there is trouble. Because I think what happens is that Venus actually is going to be, well, applying her feminine charms to the male of Mars, and she tames the male, and they're actually going to get on together, and there will be some harmony. So there is, in some respects, some sort of opposites attract action going on. So I think that what could happen is that you have an emotional idea, which is Venus, to head off in a new direction in something, which is Aries. Aries is about new and pioneering. So just this emotional idea, just this whim to go and do it. I think it's also the case that you could find that there is one part of you that wants to go in one direction, whereas another part of you wants to go in another direction, because I'm looking at these guys who are, even though they're together, they are separate. So there's the one you, but there's that direction and there's that direction. I think it's also the case that there is the message here that you need to complete things before moving on to new things, and you may need to complete and tie off certain things in your private and business lives. You may have decided that if you've been dating and you don't propose to continue dating, just tie that off. There may be arguments that you've had with people, or there's been misunderstandings, just clear them up. There may be things which you're doing in your workplace and you want to go and do some new things. Clean up the things that you were doing before, and that will be that's going to provide the best outcome for you there. No question about that. Now here we have the Wheel of Fortune. This card basically, can I sum this card up in one word? Yes, it is. Yes, is the card. Let's have a look at it. Now, here we have a wheel. The wheel is made of solid gold. Embossed on the wheel itself are the signs of the zodiac. Standing behind the wheel in the dress is Lady Fortune herself, and she's blindfolded. Now, you'll notice that her wings and her hands together touch this wheel in 7 places. That means, and her head, so her head, hands and wings touch in 7 places, which means is a reference to the 7 classical planets before the outer transpersonal planets of Uranus, Neptune and Pluto were discovered. On top of the card is sort of a cherubic figure, I suppose, in this hand holding a phoenix, the symbol of resurrection and renewal. In this hand, the sword that's governing the card. Up here, this sort of greeny guy going after a crown, going up the wheel. This looks like a man on fire, coming down the wheel, chasing a crown which is about to go into this water. Now, this blue disc, which is behind Lady Fortune, I take that to be your individual life, whereas this green sea down here, I take that to be life in general, the life out there in the world. And here is an old guy who's bobbing around out there in the sea of life. Well, what does it say to you? First of all, I have a lot of Jupiter all over this card, so I'm getting abundance, prosperity, and fortune, good fortune. This card is the Lord of the forces of life. This is change of fortune, which is generally good. It's good fortune, I think, here. When I say generally good, where I see it's placed in the spread, it is good fortune. And there's an element of destiny associated with this as well, I have to say. I'm going to say that this represents a time when I think there could well be some unexpected change in your life, which is going to be favorable, but it may not necessarily seem that way at first. So be ready to act on any unexpected opportunities. Now, when times are good, stay centered, because things can change, as we know. And if you have been going through something of a challenging time, don't be discouraged, because things are going to get better. Change is about to happen. Now, you may need to alter your present course or change things around to set the stage for the right outcomes to come into your life. But remember, if you struggle against the course of life, you become like someone struggling against the course of the wheel, and you end up bobbing around in the ocean like a cork. What this is saying is that despite the ebbs and flows of fortune, you will never be shaken or broken. And if you stay centered to your own truth, you will get through any hardship whatsoever. I have these thoughts in mind, in relation to this card, and it is, I am a prosperous individual. I am flexible in times of change. I enjoy manifesting internal abundance externally. Abundance which created me is what I am. I am now ready for the miracle in my life. Fantastic. Great energy, that. Well, have we done these cards? I think we have. So let's have a look at the playing cards. Let's see what they have to say. Here's, of course, the Jack of Hearts. Well, this usually means a young male, but it could also be a female, a friend, or a family member, or a loved one, or a love interest. Now, because Jacks are low in the court hierarchy, they represent things that are young or fresh. Now, it can also mean invitations to be received by you, or messages that are pleasant and make you feel good. Also gifts. Now this can, because jacks are young and there's a newness associated with them, they can refer to the beginning of a new relationship, and they can also represent someone that you're about to meet, with whom a relationship, whether platonic or not, may be established. The other thing that the Jack of Hearts can very well represent is a young admirer. And this young admirer may be someone with whom you form a relationship. Well, you might become a cougar, or the relationship may be platonic. Let's have a look at this card, the Ace of Spades. Now, when you look at this, don't go with the superstitious view that the Ace of Spades means death. It very rarely does. Traditionally, it can mean death, but it depends on what other cards are around it and what the energy is around it. It does represent changes, though. It also represents rebirth. It can have reference to government buildings or you having government transactions. It can represent difficult or troubled endings as a rule. Difficult or troubled endings, but because it is, in your case, surrounded, and I'm just looking at this here, by these two hearts cards, a difficult or troubled ending that comes about in relation to something is something that ultimately is going to be for the best, and you will benefit from that ending, given the opportunity for something new to become established. And here we have the companion, really. The twos are about cooperation, interaction, partnership, doing things together, business or personal relationships. Really, it's a great energy for love and family. It is in many respects the union of hearts and represents loving relationships or lovers or spouses, children, family or close friends. It may reflect, I suppose, the need to spend time with someone that you love, and what it does also represent are problems lifting and strength coming from a partner. Well, there you go, interesting. That's the way it is for you this month.
Well, there you go, March underway. Well, let me just say this, is that you were fantastic during that reading and I really enjoyed providing it to you. I love providing these readings to you each month, and subscribe and become part of the family and belong. And let me just say this, and I want you to remember this always, that you are a legend and I look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, bye for now.